Welcome to the Daily MBA, where business wisdom is served fresh and fast, straight from one of the top MBA programs in the world. I'll give you summaries of my lectures and readings, as well as the most important insights gained from an MBA, so you can apply all of this knowledge in every business. Let's get started. There's a common misconception that it's the same working with teams than working with individuals in a group. And that is basically incorrect. Because the purpose of teams is to create more value than the one that all of its members would add by itself. So, how can you make a team work more efficiently? There are many models for that, but one of the most popular ones is called the work group model. And today, we're going to talk about this model in the episode. So, the first thing you need to understand is that the work group model has 5 elements. The first element is the context, and this one basically relates to the context in which the company is operating. Does the company have any difficulties to anticipate the necessary contextual factors? That may be one of the questions that you have to ask, because the context that you're working in will shape your work. The second element will be the leadership style. Because leadership style varies from person to person, but also the leadership style required may vary from team to team. So what you have to have in mind is first, what is the style required by that specific team, and then what is the style of the leader. If this is having a fit, then it's probably showing that it's a good leadership, and we can also know how this leadership style will affect the norms and the culture, because this is going to be crucial for any company and its operations as a team. The third factor is going to be a couple of factors together, but these are going to be called the design factors. And so in point number 3, you can also open it up and you'll have the people, the formal organization, and the task designs. I'm going to expand on this one later, but basically what you need to know right now is that the design factors are the ones that are under the control of the leader. So these ones are going to be the ones where a leader can make the most influential decisions, and basically this is the only thing with the leadership style that it's under his or her control. After the design factors, you'll have the group culture. That is the fourth element, and this one is basically out of the control of any leader, because the group culture means the sharing behaviors and norms that are within a group. And shaping group culture is very, very hard. It's almost impossible, because this were the behaviors that were created within the team, and some even weren't required, but are created and performed by the team members. So all of this will have a great effect on performance, which is going to be related to the fifth element, which is effectiveness. And so effectiveness will look at the outcomes. But how you have to look at it is that you'll measure effectiveness not only in the results, but also within the team and the group. And we also have to analyze how all of this effectiveness relates when we're looking at the culture. So now I'll summarize the 5 elements: context, leadership style, design factors, group culture, and effectiveness. Let's start doing a deeper dive into each one of these elements so we can further understand how all of them work. First, we have to look at the context. And basically what I was telling you is this is out of your control. It's the context in which the company is operating. And so this one will involve the physical setting, for example, the customers, the suppliers, the competitors, even the labor market or the financial markets, as well as the political, legal, and cultural systems that are surrounding any type of company. So context is out of your control, but will definitely start shaping all of your company. Second thing you have to have in mind is the leadership style. And leadership style is something a bit more complex, and I'm going to be talking about this in a future episode. But for now, we could summarize it on the background of the leader, how experienced he is, which skill set he or she may use, and the leadership behavior that it's being applied. Also, another thing that you can think of is the source of power of this leader. because there are many sources of power that you can hold as an individual, and some will give you more power than others. For example, there's the legitimate power, which is the only one that you have by your role. So if you're a CEO, you have a lot of legitimate power. But there are other important power types, such as reward power or coercive power. These two types of power are going to be the ones that allow you to even provide positive outcomes to others, or that you can threaten or punish others, respectively. So the reward power is if you can give good things to others, the coercive power if you can punish them. And not all leaders have this type of power. This one would be extremely present, for example, in the military. Then you would find the two last types of power, which are going to be the expert power, and no job will ever give you this because this one's derived from your competence or your knowledge. But then you also have the referent power. And this one also, you're not acquiring it from your job, but more your personality, because this one's your charisma or your charm, or even how you persuade others and how likable you are in front of others. So when we're talking about leadership style, we can talk about either these 5 sources of power: legitimate, reward, coercive, expert, and referent, or from the other factors that I was talking about. But after we have the context and the leadership style, we're going to start diving into the design factors, which I told you were going to be the hardest ones to understand. So what are the design factors? These ones are the ones that are under the control of any leader, and they're going to have 3 parts. First part is the task design. And in the task design, we can summarize many elements about the task that is being required within the team or the group. So basically, the task design will include the required activities, so what tasks does the team have to do, the required interactions, which will involve a lot of group members or even external shareholders. That's going to be the interactions the team will need. Then you may also encounter the third factor, which is interdependencies, and this is how correlated are the workers. And this one is extremely important because there are 3 types of interdependencies. You may have the pooled task interdependence, for example, and it's when every team member is working separately towards the same goal. So I'm not being collaborative with my other colleagues, I'm just working towards my own goal, and this is giving me the pooled task interdependence. Then you may also have the sequential task interdependency, which is when you hand your work over to a colleague and he will finish his part and hand it over to another colleague and she will finish his part, and it will continue like a chain, and you keep passing the work from one member to the other until you reach the group performance that's required. So this one, as the name says it, it's like a sequence. You would have a sequential task interdependency in this case. And the last one, it's called the reciprocal task interdependence. And this one basically means everyone is interconnected and it's doing reciprocal work, so I'm collaborating with each and every one of my colleagues to reach the group performance. So you have to identify how is going to be the interdependence of the task that you are designing, because this will shape, for example, the collaboration needed within the group. If it's pooled task interdependence, no one needs to be collaborating. If it's sequential task, people will need to be collaborating, but more in a sequential order. And if it's reciprocal task, then everyone has to be collaborating within each other, and this will increase the group performance. So interdependencies are going to be extremely important for determining the task. The fourth factor for the task design is going to include the variety and scope. And so the variety will come from how many skills are you using for that required task, and the scope is talking about how much it is covering. So is the task that you're doing covering a lot or covering a little, and how many skills do you need for doing that job? This one's what's going to be covered in variety and scope. Fifth, we have significance. And basically this relates to how the task may have a high effect or may make a difference to others. Finally, sixth, we'll have autonomy. And autonomy is basically the power you have to carry out the decisions on how to make your own work. So, designing a task consists of 6 important things. I'll summarize it here because I know the group model factor is very complex and you can start getting many parts from each. But the 6 parts of the task design are going to be required activities, required interactions, interdependencies, variety and scope, significance, and autonomy. After you've figured out all of the 6, you will have already designed your task. So, what's next? Basically, deciding how the formal organization will work. And this one can be thought of in 3 ways: the structure, the system, and the staffing. So first, the structure, it's pretty simple. It's who reports to whom. And is the structure going to be centralized or decentralized? So it's going to basically hold the entire reporting structure of a company. Second thing you have to consider is the system. And this may involve reward systems, payment systems, mentoring systems, or even management systems. So all of these ones are going to be embedded in your company as well. And finally, the third design factor for the formal organization would be staffing. So who takes decisions and who has to ask others to take that decision, and basically how decisions are taken within the company. This one will be staffing. So designing a formal organization is way more simple than designing a task, but still you have to consider those 3 things: structure, system, and staffing. Then, after you already have the task design and the formal organization structured, you should go to the most important thing, and it's the people. So how are you going to choose the people that are going to work within your group and make it efficient so it works as a team? Basically, you have to consider 4 things: demographics, competences, interests and values, and working styles. So first, demographics, I think it's also very simple to understand. It's the age, the gender, the nationalities of the people. The competences are the experiences that workers may have or their backgrounds. So here, you can also include diversity, because diversity is usually thought of as just having men and women at the workforce or having different ethnicities and cultural backgrounds, but including diversity in experience and also in technical backgrounds will bring a lot of value into the table. The third thing, interests and values, will be extremely important because basically you have to be aligning on what do all of them want and what is important for them. And lastly, but not least, is going to be the working style. So are the working styles of the persons in your team similar? And you also have to consider, can they work in teams, or do some of them prefer working individually? And also, if those that are working individually can do their work by their own, or will they have to collaborate with other workers? All of those are factors regarding people. And with this, we would complete all of the design factors, as we would already have the people in the group, the task they have to do, and how the formal organization will be structured. So after you combine the context, the leadership style, and the design factors, all of this will lead to the group culture. And the group culture, I was telling you, it's going to be extremely important because these are the basic assumptions that are considered valid within a group. And this are inculcated in how members think, perceive, and feel their work. Basically, the organizational culture or the group culture will determine how people actually behave. And the hard thing is this one can't be designed directly because it will just emerge from the group behavior. There are some people that say culture comes from the top. So as a leader, you should try shaping these behaviors, especially putting some specific norms and following them. But a right strategy is not good enough and won't even ensure the effectiveness, because you have to find a congruence that will lead to the correct creation of a group culture. some elements that you might consider within the group culture are, for example, what are the norms that a group may have? What are the shared values? What are the roles and the status of those roles? And also, which subgroups have been created? What are some myths that the workers are doing? Even the shared conventions that they may have, or the emergent activities that they are practicing. All of this will be embedded in the group culture and will be the one thing that will lead to the group effectiveness. And I'm going to close up this episode by talking about the group effectiveness, which is usually measured by performance. And most leaders think that if the group's output is enough and its decisions, products, or services met the standards of those who needed it, the group was effective. But this would only be measuring effectiveness in performance. You're not really measuring the effectiveness of the team as a whole. Of course, it's crucial that the group's output is satisfactory, but you also have to consider two other things, which are going to be the member well-being and the development. So that means that this group experience really contribute to the personal well-being and the development of each member of the team? Because if it did, then the group was effective. We also have to consider the third and final form of effectiveness, which is the shared capacity to adapt and learn. So, does the group experience enhance the capability of the members to work and learn together? Because if you're learning and working together, you're going to be very, very effective as a group, and you'll be acting as a team. So, when we have to summarize, the 5 important elements of a work group model are context, leadership style, that are going to be the ones surrounding the group, then the design factors, which include people, task design, and formal organization. These are the things that are under the control of leaders. And the design factors, along with the context and leadership style, will then lead to the group culture. Group culture is basically out of your control, but it will ultimately be leading to the effectiveness. So I hope this is clear. This is a very complex model, but I'm going to be coming back to some of these topics to talk about, for example, task significance and leadership styles in my future episodes.